at oldwest.org, an article by Karen Harris entitled 10 Native American Mythical Creatures, from thunderbirds to skinwalkers. From the Sphinx of ancient Egypt to the dragons of China and the Minotaur of ancient Greece, one thing all cultures have in common are fantastical monsters. Legends of strange beasts and paranormal creatures come from all corners of the Earth's folklore, and Native American cultures are no exception. In fact, their mythologies are rich in powerful and fearsome animals that permeate their legends and oral tradition. Here are 10 of the most well-known and intriguing mythical creatures and monsters from Native American cultures and folklore. Number 4. Andamkinowet. Native American cultures, like communities around the world, include tales of half-human, half-fish beasts that inhabit waterways. The Andamkinowet is the Algonquin version of the mermaid myth, or rather, it is a merman. All the myths and legends of this mythical creature describe the Andamkinowet as a male who likes pretty young women. The Andamkinowet, as the stories go, lurks in lakes, rivers, and streams, and accosts young women and girls when they remove their clothing to bathe. Sometimes it doesn't even bother the women. It merely watches as a woman swims nude and washes herself. Yeah, that's kind of creepy. In other legends, the creature takes its voyeurism a step too far by swimming unseen beneath the surface to molest an unsuspecting bather. The merman does not try to kill the women, but he certainly lives up to his reputation as the perverted merman. Atahasia. Atasea. We'll say Atasea. The Andamkinowet wasn't unique in North American mythology. Other mythical creatures stalked young women as well, according to Native American stories. One of these more fearsome creatures was the Hatasaya, described by the Zuni people of the Southwest as huge and demon-like, much larger than a normal human. The Hatasaya is covered in thick, knobby skin and long gray hair. It is muscular and scaly, with bulging red eyes. Numerous tales in the Zuni oral tradition describe the Atasaya abducting and cannibalizing young women. As menacing as the Atasaya was, however, most of the tales about this cannibalistic demon end in the creature's defeat. In one story, for example, the Atasaya lured a couple of beautiful young girls back to his cave. He tried to trick the young maidens into sampling the soup he had been cooking. Soup made from human children he had abducted. When that did not work, he tried to convince the girls to comb his silver hair. The two girls were saved by the Zuni god of war, who killed the demon and rescued the maidens. They call that Deus Ex Machina, saved by the gods. And we continue. The Taihihan and the Namaragar. Several Native American tribes include stories of races of little people called the Taihihan and the Namaragar and the Pukwudgies. According to legend, these were not cute, jolly, Disney-like dwarves. Instead, they were strong, fierce, and brutally warlike. In some myths, the little people were magical forest gnomes, while in others they were a fearsome foe. Taking its name from the Arapaho word for strong, the Taihihan were said to have made their homes on the plains of Wyoming and Colorado, where they could prey upon the Native American people also living there. The Namaragar, whose name means people-eaters, lived in the Pedro Mountains near the Wind River in Wyoming. Both groups of little people were described as being child-sized, incredibly aggressive, and cannibalistic. The dwarves would kidnap and devour children, kill livestock, and attack adult warriors with ease. They were equally brutal to their own kind. According to the stories, the Namiragar practiced a gruesome form of euthanasia by bashing in the skulls of their own members who had become injured, fallen ill, or had grown too old to be useful. Nearly all the myths surrounding these fierce little dwarves conclude with accounts of how Native American tribes banded together to wage an ancient battle against the Tahian. The little people were soundly defeated, the entire race exterminated. Although the tales of the Tahian and the Namiragar have long been considered as folk tales, there may be some evidence that the race of little people did once inhabit parts of the American West. Thank you, Johnny Pepperston, for the super chat. Johnny says, all this talk of owl people reminds me of when I was a kid, and other kids told stories about a man in black that would stand on the side of the highway at night. He had a face like an owl. Thank you, Johnny, for that chilling thought. There are eyewitness accounts from European explorers, most notably Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark expedition, to corroborate these legends. In 1932, the mummified remains of a fully grown adult, who was roughly 65 years old, was discovered in Wyoming. The remarkable thing about this mummy is that it is only about 14 inches tall. In addition, it was killed by a sharp blow to the cranium. The discovery of this mummy, dubbed the San Pedro Mountains mummy, seemed to provide some proof of the existence of the little people from Native American folklore. Since the discovery of this mummy, the remains of other ancient little people have been found. Perhaps there really was a race of fierce dwarves roaming the Old West. Next we have Ogopoga and the Flathead Lake Monster. Look at that beautiful black and white. The Loch Ness Monster gets all the attention. But according to Native American myth and folklore, there are strange unidentified sea serpents living in some of the larger lakes of North America. Ogopoga in British Columbia and the Flathead Lake Monster in Montana are two such creatures. The depths of Okanagan Lake in British Columbia are said to be a home to a giant sea serpent, a monster more than 40 foot long. The indigenous people of the region have long told tales of the creature, which they have named Ogopoga, or Water Demon. According to lore, the beast demands a blood sacrifice before it will allow anyone to cross the lake. Similarly, Flathead Lake, just across the international border in Montana, also has the same sort of monster. The Native American people believed the lake monster could whip up a terrible storm on Okanagan Lake and capsize boats unless it was given a sacrificial offering. To ensure safe passage, they would bring a chicken or a rabbit or another small animal with them. They would toss the poor chicken into the water to drown, thus appeasing the sea monster. One of the early European settlers to the area, John McDougall, once tried to cross Lake Okanagan with his team of horses, when, inexplicably, his boat began to be dragged under the waves. McDougall, his men, and his family were in danger of drowning. Suddenly he remembered the warnings and stories from local Native Americans, cutting loose several of his horses. The animals were pulled under the water by the beast, allowing McDougall and his group to escape. The Kootenai Indians of Montana, who lived on the edges of Flathead Lake, blamed the Flathead Lake monster for flooding the surrounding land and killing as much as half of the Kootenai tribe. Then we have the Piazza bird. Oh, and there it is, etched on the wall of the cliff. Isn't that interesting? The Piazza bird was a mythical creature, allegedly living in the steep cliffs along the Mississippi. According to Native American myth, the Piazza bird was quite different from the thunderbird. It was depicted as a flying dragon in ancient paintings dating back as far as 1200 AD. In the year 1673, Father Jacques Marquette wrote about the Piazza bird in the journal he kept while traveling through the area. In the journal, he claimed the creature was as big as cattle, with blood-red eyes and antlers on its head. The body was covered in scales, yet it had a human-like face. It also had a long, thin, snake-like tail. According to legend, the Piazza bird feasted on human flesh, but not fresh flesh. Rather, it circled around when Native American warriors battled enemy tribes. When the fighting had ended, the Piazza bird would swoop down to dine on the bodies of the fallen warriors. Let's check out some art.
I have a cringy obsession, if you will, with skinwalker videos on the internet. My dog is a skinwalker, or is that a skinwalker? But what if I told you that those aren't real skinwalkers? Usually the only thing these videos get right is that they take place in Arizona, and that's at best. Then what is a skinwalker? I traveled over 1,000 miles to Flagstaff, Arizona to answer what skinwalkers really are. They are a Native American legend, real folklore from real people. The Navajo were a very magical tribe. They believed very much in the magic of good and evil, and especially this magic of good and evil in relation to animals. For example, if you were a Navajo shaman, you would practice good magic, drawing powers from animals like deer and elk. Now, if you were not a Navajo shaman, and maybe something else, then you would practice bad magic, drawing powers from animals like coyotes and black bears, animals of a more evil nature.
In short, skinwalkers are people. They're just people who practice forbidden magic, who have devoted themselves to evil, practicing spells and spirituality that is forbidden in Navajo culture for being of bad intention and evil for the soul.
Skinwalkers are Navajo magicians who practice evil and bad magic.
Someone may become a skinwalker for multiple reasons, but all of these reasons involve purely self-interest. Reasons such as revenge, wealth, or power. No one else benefits from you being a skinwalker. Becoming a skinwalker is not an easy process. To become a skinwalker, you have to find someone who is already a skinwalker to mentor you through the process. And this process is a number of trials, with each trial becoming more and more evil than the last, with the last trial being so awful and heinous that it separates you from your humanity. This is usually the murder of a family or loved one, or even cannibalism. Either way, you are putting being a skinwalker above everything else in your life.
But there is some truth to that shape-shifting part. Now, skinwalkers don't exactly shape-shift, at least not in the modern Western sense of the term. When a skinwalker shape-shifts, what they really do is they take the pelt of an animal and they wear it. And by wearing it and using their magic, they can draw powers from that animal. So if you wear the pelt of a coyote, for example, you might get a heightened sense of smell. You might be able to run faster or get more agility. You get the picture. Now, some legends do say that the skinwalkers can fully shapeshift into another animal, but from what I've seen, it seems to be a lot more of a spiritual transformation, where you're really taking on the spirit of that animal, rather than a physical transformation where you just now look like the animal.
Skinwalkers aren't found just anywhere. They're typically found in more wooded areas with lots of grass and lots of cover. Really anywhere where people are common enough, but no one would really know if they went missing. In fact, forests just like this would be the perfect place to find a skinwalker. The first thing you'll notice when a skinwalker is near you is the entire area going completely dead silent. The chirping of the birds, the rustling of the wind and the trees, all gone. Once the deafening silence rolls in, you will start to hear what sounds like a child crying in the distance, or maybe a loved one calling to you from the woods. The skinwalker will use its voice mimicking abilities to lure you off into the woods, and once it lures you away, it will kill you. And this is if it even has the decency to lure you away. Sometimes, it'll just straight up kill you, yo.
Skinwalkers are very territorial in the sense that they just don't want you around. Killing you because you were there. Skinwalkers are just inherently violent and evil. Now, unlike the Fleshgate or the Wendigo, the Skinwalker's not going to eat you, it's just going to kill you. But there is something you can use to kill them. I'll get to that in a second, but there are two ways to kill a Skinwalker. For the none of you watching that are a Navajo shaman, you would use your magic and spells and fight the Skinwalker on its own level. The way to kill a Skinwalker is white ash. And not by itself, but by dipping a bullet or a blade in it, can kill a Skinwalker. But you have to kill it through the brain or the heart. If you don't hit a vital organ like that, then the Skinwalker will just heal itself through whatever dark magic it possesses. Now if you have a gun, then you'll want to shoot the Skinwalker through the head or through the heart. If you have a knife, or even cooler, a sword, I wish I had a sword, then you'll want to lop its head off, or stab it through the heart. And once you've done that, then you'll want to burn the body just for good measure. Fire typically does a good job at destroying things completely.
There's an old Navajo legend from a war they had with the Ute people. Now, the Ute people were winning this war, and to stop them from going any farther into the Navajo's land, some Navajo shamans cursed a valley, and this curse made the valley very pleasing to skinwalkers for them to live there. They called this valley the Path of the Skinwalker. Now, this did lead them to win the war. More importantly, this modern-day valley is called Skinwalker Ranch.
So now hopefully whenever you see Skinwalker videos on the internet, you'll know they're not real. I mean, well, at least most of them. But I mean, Skinwalkers aren't real, right? Maybe we don't know everything. Maybe. Then maybe Skinwalkers are real.